What is art? How should we, as a modern audience, approach the genre of film? How should filmmakers go about creating works of art? It's difficult to consider the genre of film a work of art when it's married to an industry that couldn't care less about the artist. When we are constantly fed pieces of amusement and propaganda that has no intention to be beautiful or true, how can we call a film good? I'm glad Zack Snyder finally got to release his version of Justice League, and it's so nice to see fans united all over the world behind the release the Snyder Cut and restore the Snyderverse movement, and it has certainly been my pleasure to play a small role in that. I recently just talked about Justice League, so I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about its predecessor, and personally one of my favorite movies of all time, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. This film is truly a beautiful and unique experience for modern audiences, and was certainly ahead of its time. So, why does it get so much hate? In order to understand why this film is universally hated, I believe that a close examination of the context in which it exists in is in order. The year is 2016. Marvel movies are at the peak of their popularity. When someone spoke of superhero movies, images of Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor were in everyone's hearts and minds. Sure, The Dark Knight was considered to be a good film, but also relatively a safe one as well. Man of Steel had been released, and it's widely considered to be a failure. Despite loyal fans of Superman and the DC Universe vouching for it, Man of Steel, in many ways, was a prelude to the controversy that awaited its infamous sequel. At this time, there was a formula already for these action films, and Marvel Studios had perfected it. Write a mediocre, safe story, shell out millions of dollars to make the movie gear up for the next one. Marvel stayed at least 5 steps ahead from the movie it was working on, and the movies were all very vanilla, cut and dry, and safe. Up until Captain America Civil War, there hadn't been much deviation from this formula. But even Civil War played it safe with its story, not allowing major characters to suffer the consequences that the marketing suggested they would. Don't get me wrong, I'm not here to condemn anyone who enjoys these movies at all. But I really think it has gotten to the point where people are mistaking escapism for genuinely good filmmaking. Amusement for art. Enter Batman v Superman. On its opening day, audiences went to watch quote-unquote a superhero movie, with high hopes, but something was wrong. Something didn't feel right. Something felt uncomfortable, broken. There was a feeling of danger present. Danger of breaking a well-known formula. Poetry, symbolism, darker tones and themes, risky story beats, and a somber mood. A Batman that kills, a Superman that dies, a world that hates. The formula had been broken. Was a darker film to be expected? Of course it was. This is DC after all, but this was too far. Zack Snyder quickly became one of the most hated directors of all time, and the DC Extended Universe died when Warner Brothers saw what was happening and abandoned ship. And that really breaks my heart. Batman v Superman is truly a modern masterpiece of film. Not only is this an absolutely gorgeous work, but it delivers to its listeners a message that shouldn't be forgotten. I reiterate, its listeners. It's quite fascinating how the criticisms of this film, as poor of a reputation as it has, the majority of the film's critiques are a result of misunderstanding. In fact, most of the critiques are exactly in line with the film's message. Batman shouldn't be killing. That's the point. Superman ought to be more hopeful and confident. Correct. So why isn't he? I'm not going to go through every single critique and explain why it's wrong, because I truly believe that the film needs no help in defending itself. There are others who have done this excellently, such as Twin Perfect and Tex. I would highly recommend checking out their videos if you want an official report. But again, I'm not here to explain why Batman v Superman isn't a bad movie. I'm here to explain why this is a good film. Zack Snyder is often referred to as the visionary director. What does that mean? It means someone who shows great imagination and vision. Thanks to the help of his director of photography, Larry Fong, Zack Snyder crafted a unique and visually stunning image for this film. The phrase "every frame a painting" is an appropriate one to describe the look of Dawn of Justice. I mean, just look at these frames. The film speaks for itself. But cinematography isn't only about the look. For anyone who's seen a Michael Bay film, it's obvious that a film's look means nothing if it, well, means nothing. It's quite a task for the director and the DP to craft a meaningful painting for every single frame in a film. Ideally, there should be a story told through each one. And it goes unnoticed just how much detail and passion Snyder puts into every single one of his shots. His movies are full of symbolism, references to classical pieces of art, literature, and theological, philosophical images that are all relevant to the story he is telling. One example is a rather obvious one: Lex Luthor's painting of Milton's Paradise Lost. Not only is this a neat reference, but the story of Paradise Lost perfectly mirrors the story of Lex Luthor himself. Another more obscure example is when Batman is holding the spear above Superman's chest, which seems to be a reference to Saint Michael vanquishing Satan by Raphael. At this point, Bruce has deluded himself into believing that he is in fact killing an entity of pure evil, making him the savior of the world. What about this frame of Lex Luthor, as a reference to this painting of Napoleon the Conqueror? The death of Superman mirroring two distinct paintings of the death of Christ. Young Bruce ascending into the Sea of Bats, mirroring paradise from Dante's Paradiso. I could go on and on and on. But these classical references aren't the only thing that makes the cinematography beautiful. The composition of the frame and camera movements are given just as much detail. Take the scene where Lex Luthor meets Superman. The scene begins with Superman flying high above a sitting Lex, as the camera shows us both perspectives, one looking up at God, Most High, and one looking down on feeble man. As Lex and the camera rise to challenge God, God meets him on his level, as the camera slowly descends to Earth, and when Lex reveals his hand, God is now kneeled before man, and the camera follows as we gaze upwards at the now powerful man. The roles have been reversed. I could talk about this all day long, but for the sake of time, I'll conclude this section with a quote by Gordon Willis, the cinematographer for the Godfather films. A cinematographer is a visual psychiatrist, moving an audience, making them think the way you want them to think, painting pictures in the dark. It's no mystery that a film's sound is half of the experience. So why should the filmmaker select scores at random or write music that doesn't work well with the scene it's put in? Hans Zimmer and Tom Holkenborg, also known as Junkie XL, do an absolutely fantastic job at composing scores for this film and its characters. Right as the film kicks off, the score proves to be just as important as what is seen on screen. In the opening sequence of the film, in which the Waynes are killed, there's a voiceover where Bruce Wayne introducing the theme of fallingness. Just about everything falls in this scene. Bruce's parents, Martha's pearls, the leaves at their funeral, even these sparks are falling. Now take a look at the score. It falls one note at a time, plunging itself straight down into the same abyss that Bruce has fallen into. Until the bats raise him up to the light. And guess what else raises? While Bruce's leitmotif is an endless freefall, Batman's leitmotif lifts him from those depths. All of these elements work together to set up just how far Bruce has fallen and the beautiful lie that Batman has created for himself. With just one gorgeous piece by Tom Holkenborg, we feel the intensity and brokenness Bruce's state in this film. If this doesn't convince you that Zack Snyder is a talented filmmaker, I honestly don't know what will. What is this film about? Why is the story being told? And what do we have to learn from it? These questions seem to me to be completely lost to the modern audiences. Lost are the days where we analyze works of art, searching for the truth of a piece, as well as finding ourselves embedded within it. Now we are all perfectly content with checking a tomato meter and latching onto the popular opinion. Or maybe there's something else going on. I mentioned before that most action movies today offer to us a certain amount of escapism. Watching the fun and amusing Thor Ragnarok is so much easier than facing the grim reality of the world we currently live in. But what is art? Art is something that leads one to question the truths they think they know. Art is something that asks questions instead of giving answers. Art is something that shakes us, makes us see things from a different perspective. Art doesn't hide the world from us. It shows us the best and worst parts of it and ourselves. We place ourselves into every work of art we see. Batman v Superman is a story about imperfection, redemption, self-forgiveness, sacrifice, and purpose. Like Bruce, we have all failed. We lose sight of ourselves every single day. Yet there is redemption on the horizon. Like Clark, we're all searching for a place in the world, constantly doubting our worth, and desperately seeking answers of our own. It's so incredibly easy to write this movie off as being too highbrow or too hard to be deep, but when someone actually takes the time to look at what's been done with this film, the beauty is really hard to ignore. Zack Snyder created a film, a work of art, for us to see ourselves in, and we burned it to the ground. Is it a little complicated at times? Yes. Is it difficult to watch our favorite childhood heroes in such a somber state? Absolutely. Does it merit more than one watch through? It certainly does. But these are all good things. If you watch a film without using your brain once, you've essentially just ridden a roller coaster. And I don't mean to step on Martin Scorsese's toes here, but art is not an amusement park. And make no mistake, film is art.